Welcome to the Troubled Artists Podcast, episode 39. Ricardo Albarrán.
Welcome back to the Troubled Artists Podcast. Today I am here with Ricardo Albarrán. Ricardo Albarrán is a writer and director, and his most recent short film, Pelacaras, has played in several film festivals and most recently won Best Horror Short Chicago at the Chicago Horror Film Festival. So Ricardo, thank you so much for being on the show. So before we begin, I do like to ask this one question. Tell us in your own words, who is Ricardo Albarrán?
Well, first, thank you so much for having me. Who is Ricardo Albarran? I would say that I am a professional consultant by day and a creative by night. So in my day-to-day work, I work in the healthcare industry where I'm a management consultant, where I help a lot of different companies just kind of solve their healthcare problems. But in the evenings and then also on the weekends, I dedicate my time to filmmaking, just like being a creative. So I think that kind of summarizes what I do.
Nice. I'm really happy that you're on the show, and we'll get into more of your work as a filmmaker and director. But I am just curious to know, like, how did you get into filmmaking in the first place? Was it something you discovered early in life or later on in life? Just kind of tell us about that.
I remember being in high school, and I had the idea in high school of wanting to ultimately one day become a filmmaker. For me, I just completely love horror films. I've been watching them since I was like super, super young. I think I was like 7 or 8 when I first watched The Exorcist, which I probably should have been watching at that time. But I remember just watching horror films and just being so in love with them and hoping that one day I could make my own. So in high school, I remember like going to the library and I checked out the book. I think it's like Robert Rodriguez's like Rebel with a Camera or something like that. And I'm just like, okay, one day I want to do that. But then over time, I focused a lot on my professional career, in healthcare and public health, which is kind of what my background education is rooted in. And I didn't get enough time to really focus on kind of that dream of one day making my own film. And it was up until I think like maybe it was like 2021 where I took a an intro to digital filmmaking course here in Chicago with the organization Chicago Filmmakers. And it's basically a course that adults can take to just get like a basic understanding of just digital filmmaking. So I think it was like a 10-week course. I mean, every week was like a different topic, where, one week was focused on lighting, one week was focused on camera, one week was focused on sound. And near the end of that class, one of the final projects was to shoot like a very, very like 3-page short film, like with the other kind of classmates. And that's where I shot my very first short film called 3 a.m. And then that kind of, went on to show at different festivals. So that's kind of like how it all started. So it was just, from taking a one intro to filmmaking class a few years ago. And then that's kind of like where it's blossomed from there.
Yeah, that's really great to hear. But it's really great that how it started from you from just this one class, and then you continue to develop your craft over time. And then, as you said, you made that short film 3 a.m., which I did have a chance to see it because it was on YouTube, and I was just kind of curious to know like how that short film like came about. Like, what was your writing process like, and like your time working on production versus like how it was like in post and then to distribution. How did that all come about?
Yeah, so it's really interesting because, like I mentioned, it was like a final project for the course, and we actually shot it in class. So like it takes place like where I was taking the class. So like the organization is called Chicago Filmmakers. So like you see like the Chicago Filmmakers hallway, like that's basically where we shot it. And like some of two of the background actors, or many of the background actors actually are like my classmates. I think we brought on someone who volunteered their time to be like the lead actor. And the rest of them were our classmates. And the really cool thing about that experience is that, that course was very practical. It was very hands-on. And the instructor, which is Jonathan Muller, he provided all the equipment for us, and he really just kind of guided us on set. We shot it, I believe, across like two class days. I think it was like maybe 2 or 3 hours. And so it was like a really, really quick kind of production. And I think the way that I came up with the story was, well, first, like the goal was to, write something that's shootable, right? Because like we have very, very limited resources. We have the equipment available that the class is providing us to shoot something, but I'm just like, okay, like I know that I have like a computer lab. I know that I have hallways. I know that I have a few actors that are my classmates that are willing to kind of be in front of the camera. So like, what can I create here that how can I create a story around kind of what I have available to me? And that's really how I've approached like even my most recent short Pelacaras is just looking at what I have available to me, just because like I don't have like a lot of money to make films, so I need to be like really kind of resourceful and scrappy, and making kind of a vision of a story that I have, and actually kind of make it come to life. But it really, I think, with 3 a.m. it was really cool, just because it was such a huge learning experience for me, just because I was taking the class, so I was like learning while I was kind of making this film, or like all my classmates were learning as we were making the film. And even like in post, like I was the editor, I was the colorist, I was a sound designer. So it was interesting, just because like I was like learning as I was kind of doing all this, because at the end of the class, like I have all this footage available, that we were able to capture, and I'm just like, okay, like how do I like how does this become a film, and we did take like one course on editing, so we kind of had we kind of started kind of learning about it in class. But it was after the course that I had all this footage available to me that I started learning Adobe Premiere Pro. I started learning like some of the more like the foundations of coloring, and how do you make sure that the coloring is consistent across the entire film with different kind of lighting scenarios, across different shots. So, and like how do you design sound in a way that is that builds tension. And for me, like I was very, very familiar with like how that's done, just because of my love for horror that I've been watching since I was a kid. But actually, like getting behind a computer and like trying to figure out like the different like different buttons and like the different kind of sounds that are needed to like really build this tension, it was all like a learning kind of lesson for me. So I was really learning as I put this film 3 a.m. together, and it took me about 6 months to put it together. And then after that, I was like, okay, like now I have this completed film. What do I do with it? So I learned about like Film Freeway, like how you can kind of submit a lot of films, your film to different film festivals through there, and you pay a fee, and then you keep your fingers crossed, and hopefully like some of them show it at their fest. And ultimately, like it had a good festival run, and then after that, I just decided like, hey, like let me just post it on YouTube, and like let me focus on the next project, which was Pelacaras. So it was definitely a really good learning lesson for me, and it was really my first time just kind of putting my creative kind of juices into a film, which is a goal that I've had since I was a kid. So
Yeah, yeah, it's really cool that you got to like take in what you watched a lot as a kid, which is horror films, and then was able to create this horror film, which definitely had, like I mentioned before, the tension and like the drama building up to like that final like jump scare. It
mhm.
was it was really 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 interesting, and but yeah, but I guess that leads me into like you mentioned like the short film that you just made, Pelacaras, which has been in film festivals, and I saw that it had won like best horror short at like the Chicago Horror Film Festival. And I guess that yeah just leads me into like how that idea came about and how production was on that, and where you see it going on into further like film festivals. Like what was the process behind Pelacaras?
Yeah, so what's interesting about Pelacaras, so this is my second short, and what's it's different for a few things. So one is that I had a much bigger production team. I really have to give a really huge shout out to the Firehouse Film Collective, and what that is. It's a group here in Chicago of it's a group of creatives who volunteer their time and their equipment to help each other make each other's films. And it's really cool because it's it includes folks who are filmmakers, it includes folks who are writers, it includes folks who are just passionate about creating films, just for the love of it. So I joined the collective, and they were able to really help make Balacadas happen. Um, I wrote Pelacaras. I had the idea from a few articles that I started reading that really inspired the story. One of them was, I read this article, I think it was based out of Las Vegas, where like a family heard like a crash in their backyard. And then they ultimately like, they run to the backyard to see what it was. And they say that they saw like an alien or like an alien figure in the backyard or something like that. And then like and what came before it was like a flashing green light in the sky. And then like then they called the police, and then the police officer like they was on the scene, and he's just like, oh yeah, like before you even called, like I saw the green light on the sky. So it was like this very kind of strange news report that was like that actually happened, that police kind of went and investigated and everything like that. um so I'm like, okay, like this is kind of interesting, and I was like, what would happen if like something similar to that, happened in like the Chicagoland area, to like a Mexican family. So I think that's kind of like where the idea originated from. And then I think when thinking about like, okay, how do I actually like make this film happen? Again, similar to 3 a.m., I took a look at like what I had available, around me, and I had asked my sister, I'm just like, hey, like I wrote this script, like, is it okay if we shoot it at your house? And then she's just like, oh yeah, for sure. And then like my niece, who was I believe like 9 years old at the time, she had seen 3 a.m. and she's just like, she had asked me if can I be in your next movie? And I'm just like, oh yeah, sure. Like I'll write you like the leading role. I'm like, okay. So I have like a leading child actor. I have my sister's house. I'm like, what else do I have available to me? And then like the Firehouse Film Collective, of course, like who would be willing to, volunteer their time and their equipment to help make this happen. So that just kind of like the stars aligned, and just kind of everything came together, and that's kind of like how the story came to be. So like in the early versions, Pelacaras is an alien film, but it's funny, like once you watch the final version, like it's a way different story. It's way different. Um, so what was cool about it is that we found like an actress to play like the mom. So like the main characters are like the my niece Mia Cruz, who plays Camilla, and then like the mom who's played by Jocelyn Orozco, who plays Luz. And then like there's like this like the father figure, who's my cousin. I had asked my cousin like, hey Martin, like do you want to be in this film? He's like, oh for sure, dude. So like we brought him on. So it's like, it's just about like creating a, to me, like the approach that I've taken so far in like the films that I've made is just like creating a story that that has inspired me from like something else, something that I read or something that I see like in my day to day. And then in order to make it happen, just looking at like what I have available to me, and then just kind of like, molding the story from there. So I think that that's kind of like how like the lead up was to how Pelacaras came to be.
Wow. Yeah, man, that's really interesting. And yeah, something that I also wanted to mention about that film was also the acting was done very, very well. And yeah, I didn't know that the lead actress was your niece, because she did such a phenomenal job. And because there were moments in that film where she has to, break down and crying and stuff. So yeah, that was.
Yeah,
Did she
it
have
was.
any experience with like acting before, or was this like her first time, or?
This was completely her first time. She has no type of training, no type of like prior acting experience. Like she had asked me, like, "Can I be in your next film?" I'm like, "Sure." Like, let me write to the lead part. Like, where like you like go through like such an emotional like journey in this. Like, she's really bit. She's put through it, but it was really cool just because like even before we got on set, like we like her and I practiced, and I of course like I talked to my sister, and I talked to my brother-in-law, just like letting them know like, hey, like this is just to let you know, like this is a horror film, and like we want to make sure that like she's comfortable at all times, and like we had like rules in place of working with like a child actor on set. So there was like she was we had like a limited amount of hours that she could be on set. And then like she was always with her older sister, who's my other niece Vivian. Um, she was always like there for Mia, like in between takes and stuff like that. So and then so yeah, so like we had like a really kind of structured way of making sure that we do things like the right way, the correct way of just kind of protecting Mia, of being like on an actual film set with like it was a crew of like 20 people. But what was interesting is that like her and I, we practice ahead of time, the different scenes, and then some of these scenes like in the film, like it required her to like really get into like an emotional kind of space where she's like bawling, right? Like she's really going through it, and it was quite shocking to me because one of the first like the very first shot that we shot of that we had with Mia was like the closet scene, and like now it's like it's one of the main frames that I use to like promote the film. And so like if you look at the social media, like you'll see the shot that I'm talking about, and it's like when she's like it's like the closet scene where it's like a close like a kind of medium close up of her just like crying, and like that was like one of the first shots that we had of her, and after like she just completely blew everyone away, and we're just like whoa, like she's like she's good, like she absolutely killed it. And then like after it, like I yelled cut, she just like goes back to like her normal smiling stuff, like oh like how'd I do, I'm like oh this is also great. So yeah, I think like that was her first time acting, and she's just really like she just has like a natural talent. But yeah, but she really put in the work even like before getting on set, just like practicing her lines and just like practicing like the emotion that's needed for her character. So it was she really enjoyed it, and she's loving like all the like the attention that the film is getting like at different festivals, because I'm just like oh like now like people are like watching you on screen like in Canada and like in Salem, so it's really cool for her.
Yeah, yeah, that's really fun. It must be a lot of fun for her to see that, and hopefully, she continues on like that acting career. I think
Mm.
because I think she does have something special. There's a talent, so hopefully she continues to work on that. But yeah, but everything else also was really well done, and congratulations to you, just like with the success that it's getting with film festivals and just screenings of, like you said, in like different places like in Canada and here in Chicago. What's like your experience like just being at those film festivals, and like especially like the Chicago horror short when you ended up winning best horror short there, like what was just like your experience being at those types of film festivals?
Yeah, I mean it's been quite a ride so far. So Pelacaras is currently in the middle of its festival run. So I think like the I submitted it to a whole bunch of festivals, and like the very last festival that I hear from I think is like maybe like early next year. So like it's really like in the middle of its festival run still. Um, but it's been such a wild ride, like attending these festivals or like or just getting into these festivals. It's kind of it's wild to me, right? Like because it's it's a project that I shot with like my own family members. We shot it at my sister's house, and like I shot it with like my close friends at the Firehouse Film Collective. So to me, like this is like a really short film that we made for like all like very little money, and like now it's getting into some like really cool like horror festivals. Like it world premiered at the Chicago Horror Film Festival, which was so special for me just because like I had kept my fingers crossed hoping that I got in there, because I was like it would be amazing to like world premiere this film with like my family and friends in the audience who are able to like see it for the first time. And then on top of that, like just like like having kind of won like the best Chicago Short Award, it was just completely unexpected for me, and so it was I was just completely blown away, and like and every single time I get like an acceptance to another festival, I'm just like wow, like this is really cool. And like now it's like now it's branched out from like the Chicagoland area. Now it's it played at the Calgary Underground Film Festival, which is like a really kind of well-known festival in Canada, like a genre festival, and it was so freaking cool just because like they were able to support me, like they support filmmakers of covering some of the costs to like actually fly you out there to be there in person. So I was able to make my way to Canada, and I'm just like man, like I'm literally traveling to Canada just to like just to show a film that like I was able to make with like my family and friends. I'm just like this is really cool, and like when I get there, like everyone is just like so nice, and like they're coming up to me like oh like we're such fans of Pelacaras, like we really loved it, and just getting to meet like other filmmakers, and just hearing like what their experience was, and like making their films and bringing them to life, like it's just It's just been such a really cool experience for me so far, and I'm in the middle of it, right? Because like it right like this later this week, like it's playing at the Chattanooga Film Festival, and like that's also like a really well known like genre horror film festival. Throughout this process so far, like I've just made such like a lot of new friends, like who live like in different states, like who are also like creatives, who are filmmakers, who are like festival directors. I've now met these people who are like I now consider my friends just because like they're like we found a connection through like our mutual love of films, a mutual love of filmmaking, and so it's been such a really cool experience just meeting other filmmakers. And I think like another cool experience is also like hearing from the audience as well, because you know I always get so nervous when I am like at a screening of my film. So for me, like I'm just like, okay, I'm sitting at the very last row, like I like I'm sitting, and just like I'm like noticing everyone's reactions, and I'm just like there are times where I'm just like, okay, like yeah, like they had the reaction that I hope they had, like that jump scare hit, or like oftentimes like it's just like dead silence, and I'm just like, like do people like it? Do they not? But it's cool because like you also hear from like the audience who like you don't even meet. Like for Pelacaras, I created a like a letterboxed like a profile for the film where people can go on there and like review it. so so it's also been interesting just kind of having people like review, and every single time like it shows at a festival, like I get like a few more reviews, and it's really cool just because like this is actual like fans of like the genre, and like people who like just like love films who take time out of their day to like write a review about something that you've made. And to me that's really cool. And a lot of the time like it's feedback that you can apply to your next film, or like even or it's feedback that that you can apply to the film right now while it's going through its festival run. Like I'll give you an example, like on Letterboxd, someone wrote like, oh, like I like the film, but just like a side note, like the subtitles were way too small. Um, and for me, like my film isn't like in English and Spanish, so like it has like subtitles in both English and Spanish, and I'm like, oh, like that's really great feedback that I can like immediately change like for future kind of festivals while it's still going through the festival run. So it's been really cool just connecting with filmmakers, but then also like hearing from the audience about just like an art that you've made. I mean it also like it's a kind of vulnerable place to also like put yourself in, because you create this like piece of art and like you release it into the world, and like now you're hearing people like react to it. Hearing when people are able to connect to your film, in whatever way that they connect to it. Like some people just like really like have come up to me at film festivals and say like they just like really like loved it because they found it scary. I'm like, okay, that's the highest compliment. Or some people like just really connected because they saw like Latino representation on screen, especially for horror, which is really underrepresented. I'm like, that's super cool. Like that's what I'm doing this for, right? Like I'm telling I've my goal is to just tell kind of personal stories that that I'm able to relate to, being, like Mexican American, being queer, just to kind of like just seeing more representation of on screen in the horror genre that is traditionally underrepresented. So it's like hearing that type of feedback from people when I've attended these festivals. It's just makes everything just super rewarding.
Yeah, yeah, that's another thing too, just like having Latino representation, because I'm also Mexican American myself, so just seeing us, in front of the camera or working behind the camera, it's always very fulfilling just to see that. And like you said, like there's not too many horror films that, star Latinos or Latinos working behind the camera, so it's really great what you're doing in that aspect, and it makes us proud of who we are. And it's really great just to see that on the big screen, and again just getting like that positive feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like with Pelacaras, because it is in English and Spanish, like I approached the film in a way where I wanted my family who are Spanish speaking to be able to also enjoy it, right? Like they also like enjoy the story. So like the majority of it I would say is in Spanish. So yeah, so I think like for me, like I approach it in that way, just making sure that, folks who are Spanish speaking who, want to watch like a really quick, horror film, like they'll enjoy and they can enjoy this one.
I wish you the best of luck when it comes to that, and just like whatever your next project is, I'm hoping that it'll be very very successful, which I guess does lead me to my next question, which is like what's sort of your next project that you have in the works, or just anything that you're working on right now?
Yeah, so I'm currently in the middle of writing a few scripts, actually, a few like short film scripts, and it's interesting because like I am also still learning how to be a writer. I've only made two short films so far. So I'm also like learning, how to write kind of short films. So for me, I think with that, like I feel like I'm in like in this kind of in this kind of phase where I'm just like having trouble kind of like deciding like what idea to go with. I have like three ideas for a short film that like I really want to explore, and I'm just like, oh, like I started one, I paused it, and then I came back to it like a few weeks later, and I'm just like, oh, I absolutely hate this. Like I do not like this. I cannot do this. And then I started the second one. I'm like, okay, this is really cool. This is really cool. And then I went back and reread the first one. I'm like, oh, but maybe I could like adjust it a little bit and maybe kind of work on it because of that. Now I'm starting to like it a little bit more. And then I stopped, paused that one. Then I came up with a new idea. Now I have like a third one. So right now, like there's like three kind of short films that I'm like working on that I haven't yet decided like which one to I guess for to be my next short. But I think like the goal of like for me is I hope to finish something soon and kind of shoot it before the end of the year so that it's out in its festival run by sometime next year. So yeah, I think like it's a very similar approach to Pelacaras that I feel like I'm going to take with these kind of with any one of these stories really is just kind of looking at what I have available to me and just making the best film that I can with what I have available.
Nice. Yeah, that's really awesome. And these short films that you're writing, are they all horror based, or are you going to try to dive into like different types of genres like in the future?
So it's funny because I absolutely love horror films, and I feel like I want to stay in this lane. But I don't know. I feel like I could write like a pretty good comedy. So I'm just like, okay, like eventually one day, like I might kind of, take a pass at like writing a comedy film. But yeah, I think for now it's just gonna be horror, just because I love the genre so much, and really like that's basically like all I watch. Like I saw Backrooms, I saw Obsession recently, and like I'm always like on like checking to see what new like horror films are out. So yeah, that this is a genre that I love, and that's kind of what I primarily watch. So that's probably where I'm going to be for the foreseeable future.
Are there like any other like highlights so far in your filmmaking career that you'd like to discuss?
I think for me, like one of the main highlights is working with the Firehouse Film Collective. So like if, for those who are listening, you can check them out on Instagram at Firehouse Film Collective, and you can check out kind of some of the films that we do. And it's been such a highlight for me because I think like the way that the group is structured is that like we welcome just folks who are creatives who love film and who want to help each other kind of create films, and it's been such a highlight for me because I've been able to make so many friends, from this collective, but then also like I've been able to learn just so much about filmmaking at the same time. You know, like for example, like for one of the other filmmakers as part of the collective, like I was the boom operator. Like I was holding a boom mic, and I kind of learned how that role functions. Like actually on set, for like another film, like I was working the lighting setup. So I learned a lot about lighting and how to light a scene properly, and on that same set I was also like working the audio. Like we kind of rotated roles, so it's such a like an educational experience that we really I guess like promote within the collective, that has really helped me just understand the inner workings of how film gets made. And like now, for my next film, like I feel like fingers crossed. I feel like it might be easier for me to make it because like now I like understand what it is to like direct a film, which I did with Pelacaras. Now I understand, what the audio person does. I understand like the where the boom mic person, what the role is, or like the lighting. Like I'm much more familiar about those different roles on the set than I was, when prep before joining the collective, like with 3 a.m. for example. So I think for me, like that's been a big highlight, and I think that's something that has been just like foundational in like my filmmaking, just because I've been able to like now make 2 films, but then also like work on other films for other people, um, and really just kind of see like how the sausage is made, and just like really understand the hard work that goes behind this. And with Pelacaras, like we shot it across like 4 days, so it was 4 shooting days, so it was 4 12-hour days. And then it took me about a year to edit the film, and like so there's just like so much work that goes into this. And like with Pelacaras, it's just 10 minutes long, so like it literally takes that long. Like you invest your time and just for like the love of filmmaking to create like an art that people are just like now connecting with. So I think just like being part of the collective has just been such a highlight for me, just because I've just learned so much. And I've also been just like grateful to be able to help other people bring their visions to life, and and have people connect with their films in the same way that people are connecting with mine.
I guess I just wanted to ask you, like, what have been some of those struggles that you faced so far in your filmmaking career?
So I think for me, the struggle has been like finishing the writing. I mean, for me, like there was a period of time after I finished Pelacaras that I was just like, okay, like I'm taking a break, like I'm taking a break from like writing or just filmmaking in general, and just I submitted Pelacaras to a lot of film festivals, and there's like this waiting period, after you submit until after you start hearing from these festivals. And for me, I'm just like I have such writer's block from time to time where I just like can't think of like just what to put down on paper, right? Like I'm just like I don't like I feel like I don't have any ideas to like even kind of begin bouncing around. Um so I think for me, like that's been the biggest struggle is just like finishing a story, like even if it's like not great, right? Like it's just getting something finished, I think is a struggle for me. And that's why for me, like like I mentioned, like I have like these three scripts. One of them is, I think, is like it's like in a good draft form, but then like there's these 2 other ideas that like I really want to ultimately explore and pursue. So it's just like just kind of finishing like writing for me, and just getting writer's block. I think that's the biggest struggle. But I think ultimately, like with filmmaking and with Pelacaras, like I was even before we shot it, like I was just also like very um like not confident that like in I guess like my ability to like as a director, like once I was on set, like that first day on set, like the few hours leading up to it, like I was nervous as hell. I'm just like, oh my God, like I'm gonna go in, like direct this film, and even though like these are my friends, part of the collective, and it's gonna be like at my sister's house, which is like an environment that I'm like really really familiar with, and like I'm gonna be like directing my niece, like so that like we've practiced so much already. So I was just like so nervous, and just like so doubtful in like my ability to like direct this film and just like lead people to like the vision that I had for this story. And so I think for me, like that it just after that first day, like I'm just like, okay, like it went fine. And then like we got on the second day of set, it got better. So it's like with time, like you get better and better as you gain more experience. And I think for me, like that's something that that's going to be like my focus, is just to just keep writing, even if I can't think of something, like just just put something down on paper, and then just like come back to it from you can step away from it for like a few days or a few weeks, and like you might kind of have some new ideas. And that's kind of like how Pelacaras came to be. Like I remember drafting, I think it went through like maybe 4 or 5 different drafts. And I wrote the first draft, and then I stepped away from it for a few weeks. I came back to it, then I made some changes, stepped away for a few weeks, and I came back to it, made some changes. And then I also workshopped it with like the members of the collective. So like they would read it, they would give me notes and feedback, and then I would make my changes accordingly. Um, So yeah, I think for me, like the biggest struggle is actually like the creating of the story, like the writing, and then also like just like not feeling confident in my ability because like I don't have like much experience in directing. But I think like it just like with time, like you gain that experience. So it's just like just about like just really just jumping in and just figuring it out as you go, because that's really what everyone is trying to do, is just like, like no one's really like an expert on anything. People are just kind of trying to, figure things out as they go. So I think that's what I've learned so far.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's definitely a struggle I think that a lot of creatives can face, just like finishing like that project, and I know that's like a struggle that I also face because there's a lot of scripts that I've written throughout like my time at DePaul University that I haven't finished or that I want to try to get back to, but then I have like these other ideas and I want to do this or I want to do that, like so yeah, there's definitely like trying to stay focused on one and trying to write it and trying to make it, manageable, or something that we can actually film or do like in maybe like in a few days, or, just something that we can get done at
Hmm.
the end of the day, just like getting it done and submitting it to like festivals and stuff because, it's just that's what's important, like getting like that finished product, because there's a whole bunch of brainstorming and ideas that we can get, and I always try to write down like even if it's like a small like idea, I always try to write it down, whether it's like a line of dialogue or a character name or something, I try to write it down because I know like in a few minutes I'll probably forget it, and it's like, oh, I should have wrote it down,
Hmm.
and or sometimes if I don't have time to write it, I'll like open up like the voice memo app on my phone and just talk and just say like what it was I was just thinking about and then just save it for later and then, if a few hours goes by and I listen to it again, I'm like, okay, yeah, that is a good idea. Let me develop that, so
Yeah, it definitely takes time, and that's exactly what happened with Pelacaras when I was editing it. So like for me, like I edited the film, and it took me about a year to like actually like finish the edit. Just because, like I mentioned, like the story started to like on script, in the script it's an alien film. But the actual film now, it's completely different. Like it's not that. And when after we finished shooting, like I had all the footage available to me, and then I put it all together, just based off of like how the script was, and then I'm just like, okay, like I feel like this isn't working for me. So I had to like create so many different versions of the edit, to really like find the story, that it is now. And for me, like I would, the reason why it took me so long is because like I would walk away from it. Like I would edit it, and then create a draft, and then I'm just like, okay, like this isn't like I don't it doesn't feel right to me. So then I would spend maybe like one month, or like just like, away from that draft, and then I would come back to it with like a fresh set of eyes. I'm like, oh, like this is like, okay, I can see like what I was doing here, but I'm just like, this part of the story doesn't make sense to me, or like, maybe I'll incorporate this other footage that we shot that I didn't include in the first draft, to really, ultimately find the story. So I went through that process so many different times, and it required me to just step away from it, to just like, go out and just like live life and just like be inspired by things. And I think one of the things that really inspired me is I remember watching, rewatching a lot of films by Gaspar Noé, and just like I'm really inspired by him as a filmmaker, and like he has like all these like very trippy kind of like visuals that he uses in his films, and for me, like I was just like very inspired by that. So like I took that inspiration, and I kind of like found a way to kind of make it my own for the story of Pelacaras. That's why like in the film, like there's like a lot of like what I consider like kind of trippy, kind of static, like TV static visuals that you see there, and it's everything is like very intentional. And for me, like, once I stepped away from it and like went out and just kind of like lived life and like watched a lot of films that I was like, that I found like new inspiration, that then I was able to kind of like, get my creative juices flowing and create like new ideas that would fit with the story. And then ultimately, like I found a good rhythm in the edit, where like I was like obsessing. I was obsessing over every single second, every single frame. So like every single moment in Pelacaras is like so like in terms of the edit is like so intentional. So like and then it ultimately kind of transformed itself into the movie that it is now, which is very different from what the script was. So yeah, it did take time to just like, when you work on something and it just doesn't feel right to you, like just step away from it and just go out and live life and then come back to it, like, however long like you need to take to find inspiration, and then just you see it with a new fresh set of eyes, and then you can kind of bring any new ideas that you've come across that can kind of help build your story in the way that feels right to you.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Is there any like last minute advice that you'd like to share to any filmmaker or any director out there that's listening in to this?
Yeah, so I think for me, I'm still like a new filmmaker. I still consider myself a new filmmaker, but I think one of the things that I would recommend for those who are interested in just getting into filmmaking in general is just to go out and do it. Like, just like, you don't need like a whole bunch of money to make a film. Like with Pelacaras, like I was able to like save up a lot of money, and I think in like our total budget was around like 3 grand or something like that. And like, in the context of like other films that are playing like these kind of more well-known genre festivals, like this is like a very, very like super low budget film compared to like others. But it's like, if you're interested in getting into filmmaking, just create a story with what you have around you. I think that's the approach that I've taken so far, and I think it's been really cool just to create like a film, create art that people are really connecting with, just based off of like what I had available to me. Like, like I mentioned, we shot it at my sister's house. My niece wanted to be the lead actress. My cousin Martin plays a role. Like my sister plays a role. Like she's like she plays a character in the film, like on the other side of the phone call. Like there's a phone call scene in the beginning of the film, and like my sister's playing like a voice role. So it's like you could find like people around you, even like if it's family members, and like none of my family members had like any acting experience, and so it's like you can make a film with just like the people that and just like at your house, and just create a story that with the resources that you have available to you, and then just go out and find a few friends that would be willing to volunteer their time to help you make it. And like even with like like an iPhone, like you can actually just make a film, and then once you shoot your film, then you can learn how to edit it and do sound design, and just kind of like make it as and learn as you go. So yeah, I think like for me, like the advice that I have is just like if you're interested in filmmaking, just go just find the people that you have around you, and look at the resources that you have available to you, and just go out and make a story out of it.
Thank you for tuning in to the Troubled Artists podcast. Have a great day.